Well, the Bluebloods are back, but I honestly cannot say we are necessarily pleased with how this Week 5 turned out. Brandon limped to a 2-4 pick-6 record this weekend, while my Auburn Tigers, I think embarrassment is the word to describe their performance in Athens this weekend. But listen, on the bright side, I guess I can call myself Zachstrodamus for my upset predictions of the weekend hitting. But listen, we'll get to all that soon enough. We're bringing you only 2 segments today, and we're going to kick it off with Pick 6. We recap our 6 biggest, most important games of the weekend that we covered last episode, and then we're going to wrap it up by breaking down some of the other huge top 25 upsets that I don't think many people saw coming. So we have a full show today, guys, so let's go ahead, kick this off. So Week 5 was loaded in terms of games that were scheduled, and Brandon, I don't think any of these games disappointed per se. I mean, the blowouts that we predicted were blowouts and vice versa, but let's go ahead and get straight to it, B-Dub. Start off with a huge AAC conference game in which the number 25 Memphis Tigers were upset on the road by SMU, who now moves to 4-0 for the season, Brandon. So what happened in this game? What was your big takeaway of this game?
My biggest takeaway is that it was not an upset, actually. SMU is the favorite in this game.
Which is wild, which is absolutely ridiculous.
Well, that's what I thought, because, I mean, so I've not been very humble about my gambling picks in the first 2 weeks. I was 6-0. And then I was like, you know what? Let's keep the trend going. Let's go 9-0 this week. Didn't happen for anyone who's paying attention. I went 1-2 this weekend, but that's a whole different story. But this was one of my picks. I had Memphis, I think it was plus 1.5, and they ended up. I mean, I just quit even keeping up with this game after the first quarter. Basically, I saw that SMU was up 17-3, and I was like, all right, well, let's watch something better than this. And then apparently Memphis just decided to start playing and only lost by 3 points. So, I mean, great effort by Memphis after they were already getting blown out, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I don't really know what to say about this game. It was honestly one of those games where I was paying attention during the first quarter and then got so upset with it that I just kind of quit. I don't know. That's all I got.
That's a bad look for you, Brandon. That's a bad look.
I'm sorry. I mean, I feel like this is pretty relatable, though. I mean, who's watching a 17-3 game?
I don't know.
Quarter.
I mean, I watched a 17-0 game in the first quarter, but we'll get to that game a little bit later. I know. You ain't got to correct me. It's all good. I got you. We'll get to them in a little bit, but SMU, Brandon, for me, from the opening kickoff, looked more focused. They looked more ready. They looked more motivated. And this Memphis team looked just as rusty as we talked about in our preview episode that they could. I mean, a 24-3 lead early in the second quarter. I mean, turnovers, the rust. I mean, it's really just a combination of everything going bad for Memphis. But once they got it clicking, you could tell that these teams were a lot more evenly matched than maybe the first quarter and a half really showed. But SMU, Brandon, continued to make plays down the stretch. We kind of talked about this player in the preview episode, Reggie Robertson. We said he had to step up. Well, I think you could say he stepped up. I mean, 5 catches, 243 yards, 2 touchdowns. Brandon, he averaged 48.6 yards per catch.
That's wild.
That absolutely insane. And if he got hurt later in the game, if this injury didn't happen, I think he could even put up bigger stats. But we're hoping he's okay. The consensus right now is he should be back soon. So hopefully Robertson returns to the field very soon because this team needs him. And, Shane Buechele, he outplayed Brady White, Brandon. And this really reversed the momentum that I thought we were going to see in this matchup. I mean, over 470 yards passing for Buechele, 3 touchdowns, did not have a turnover. Brandon, Memphis could not get to him in the pocket. Out of every single play in the game, Memphis only got pressure on him 9 plays. And when no pressure was faced in all these other plays, Buechele graded out at a 90. But on those 9 plays they got pressure, his Pro Football Focus grade dropped to a 64. So that was the story of the game, is that this Memphis defense could not force him into bad decisions. And I just think turnovers were the biggest difference. I mean, Brandon, when you have 4 turnovers, you're not going to win a highly, highly contested conference matchup like this. 2 fumbles lost. Brady White had 2 interceptions. You cannot turn the ball over that much against an explosive offense like SMU. And especially when your team hasn't played in over a month. I mean, I would have to say Memphis didn't look in game shape per se. And I think, Brandon, it wasn't as evident in their first game against Arkansas State, but I think the loss of Kenny Gainwell really, really showed out this game.
I agree. I mean, it's a huge loss for this team. I mean, he's a real game changer, and to not have him, I mean, obviously, it kind of showed. They didn't perform nearly as well as they probably should have.
No, and DeMonte Coxey disappeared down the stretch. I just think Brady White just didn't play his best game. I think Memphis had a lot of losses. I mean, you look at someone like Antonio Gibson last year, who I think he had 3 touchdowns last year in this matchup.
I believe so.
He had a kick return, a receiving touchdown, a rushing touchdown. None of that. All the playmakers for this Memphis team either opted out, went to the draft, or didn't show up this game. SMU, outrageous. Brandon, the big storyline in this game, though, it's kind of funny. Did you read about the SMU student section being kicked out of the game by police?
I did not.
Apparently, in the first half, all the social distancing and masks were thrown away, and they were just going berserk. The student section was lit, I guess you could say. And at halftime, the cops and everything came in there and said, "Hey, if y'all aren't going to follow the rules, y'all got to go," and just kicked the entire student section out at halftime.
That's wild.
So I guess if you are in Dallas, please follow social distancing guidelines, because they are not playing with you guys. That they will take you out and do whatever, but I don't know if they're going to be able to have access back into future games. So that's a huge hit on home field advantage for SMU, but this was probably their biggest game of the year, Brandon. I mean, SMU, Memphis, I mean, the past few years has been really good. SMU hasn't beaten Memphis really in the last few matchups, so a huge win there. But Brandon, Memphis gets another bye week. Probably doesn't bode well for them since they just had 3 in a row. They get a bye week, and they get to host the formerly number 11 UCF Black Knights in 2 weeks, while SMU also gets a bye week, and they're going to head down to New Orleans to take on Tulane in 2 weeks. But let's get to Brandon's favorite team on this podcast. We had the TCU Horned Frogs pull off the 33-31 upset over Texas. Brandon, I know your Horns down for life, but what happened to the Longhorns here?
I'll tell you what happened. Sam Ehlinger is not as good as we've been giving him credit for, and this defense is maybe worse than we've even projected on this podcast. I mean, they looked awful this weekend. They looked so bad.
That might be an understatement, to be completely honest with you. I mean, I watched every play of this game just about.
Yeah.
And it was bad. And listen, I don't like to brag, but this is going to be part 1 if I told you so. This episode, because I told you guys this was going to happen. I did. TCU has absolutely owned Texas the past few years. Brandon, 7 of the last 9 games against the Longhorns, TCU's won now.
Yeah, you know what? And I'll stand by what I said on the last episode, Zach, and in that you almost convinced me to pick TCU, but I was hedging my happiness. And you know what? Even though I lost this game, I'm still happy. Can you say the same? Are you happy?
Oh, I was enjoying it. I absolutely was. And, the difference in the game, Brandon, that turnover on the 1-yard line in the fourth quarter, that was – I can't even talk about how just impressed I was with TCU's defense on down that final stretch. Effort, Brandon, really won this game. I don't know how many people watched down the stretch, because there were a bunch of good games going on at this time. TCU let Keontae Ingram bust out a huge run, and he was going to score. And a lot of teams would have just laid off, let him score a big run, get the ball back, and try to make a last like a 2-minute drill type score to win the game. TCU chased him down, pulled him down, and then just 2 or 3 plays later, popped the ball out of Ingram's hands at the 1-yard line, recovered it, and that was the game. TCU forced 2 turnovers, changed the game because each one led to crucial points being either taken off the board or added. The interception right before halftime, Sam Ehlinger just missed the safety completely, threw it right in between the numbers, and it gave TCU a field goal, a 2014 lead going into halftime, really swung the momentum in their favor. And listen, TCU wasn't spectacular, but you could tell that defense made Sam Ehlinger and Texas uncomfortable. They played bend but don't break defense all game. They held an explosive Texas offense to under 400 total yards and only 29 points. And I say 29 points, yes, it was 33-31, but there was a safety that ended the game where instead of punting it off to Texas, TCU just took a self-enforced safety and ran it out the back of the end zone as time expired. And Sam Ehlinger,
over, by the way, that made those.
Yes.
So
I heard there were some upset people who on Twitter who were like, "Are you kidding me? This is how we're going to do it." If that's a bad beat if I've ever seen one right there.
Yeah. No, it is. Well, or a really good beat. If you're
depending on who you. There you go. But Brandon, Sam Ehlinger, I get it. Yes, he passed for over 230 yards, 4 touchdowns, but Brandon, 47% completion percentage. That's not going to win you games in the Big 12 nowadays. And Brandon, I think you'll agree with me here. I'll let you expand on it a little bit, but just Ehlinger to me is falling into the category of a boomer bust quarterback, such that he can explode for big plays and hit deep passes and throw a 75-yard touchdown on any play he, takes a snap in. But other than that, he doesn't play very spectacular. He doesn't play clutch down the stretch. And I think that's why he's not a true Heisman candidate, because he consistently chokes away these winnable games year after year because he can't play consistently throughout an entire game.
Yeah. I mean, less than 50% passing. I mean, that's
he was
good.
He was 5 for 14 at one point with 2 touchdowns.
He really bounced back from that, but that's still not saying a whole lot.
No, and everyone's like, well, look at the touchdowns. It's like, it doesn't matter, but can he get this offense moving at all? And, I thought the run games were an interesting storyline. Yes, both quarterbacks played outstanding, but Texas did average 6.3 yards per rush, Brandon. Not bad when you look at it at face value. And TCU only had 4.5. So you're like, okay, well, Texas ran the ball better. But not really, because Texas rushed 26 less times than TCU. If you're running the ball for 6 yards per carry, why are you throwing it that much?
I don't know. That's crazy to me.
And TCU rushed the ball 50 times, Brandon, for over 220 yards and 3 touchdowns, and won the time of possession with almost 35 minutes of possession time, which kept that Longhorns offense on the sideline and really shortened this game up where Texas didn't get as many shots to score, which is why I think the score stayed as low as it did. And it allowed TCU to close the game and force Texas into 2-minute situations and put pressure on them to score every possession because they didn't know when they were going to get the ball back.
I mean, time possession was key in this matchup, and Texas just dropped the ball there. I mean, 10 fewer minutes is a world of difference, apparently.
No, it definitely is, and especially when you have a bad defense like Texas, you would think, hey, we should run the ball to keep our defense on the sidelines, and that's Brandon. I don't know how you feel about this. For me, that's how TCU pulls off these big upsets. They always go up against these high-flying Oklahoma, Texas, Oklahoma State high-flying offenses. They just limit the possessions and run the ball and chew the clock up and play stingy, hard-nosed defense. That's how they win every game. And just every year there's a Big 12 team that just forgets that and decides to throw the ball 65 times.
Right.
It blows my mind. And the sloppiness of this game, Brandon, is why I don't think either team is going to make a serious run this year. I mean, a combined 26 penalties for 201 yards, Brandon, between these two teams.
Not great.
Come on, man. 200 yards of penalties, and Texas consistently got their penalties at the worst times. They had 3 or 4 third down conversions called back, and then they went 3 and out. They also had defensive stops taken away for pass interference. It was like illegal hands to the face at one point. I mean, anything that could have went wrong for Texas on these penalties. And yes, TCU had a lot too, but theirs came at, I guess, times where they could recover a little bit easier and it didn't take away big plays or momentum. But man, I don't know. Listen, Tom Herman, I know everyone knows what's coming next week. I was about to get to it, but the Longhorns now go into the Red River Showdown, which is what Fox is dubbing it. So we're going to go with that name, even though there's 7 names there. It is the Red River Showdown, but we're looking at two teams that are going to be desperate for a win. If Texas loses this and gets down and gets to the record 2-2, they still have Kansas State, who's upset some teams. They still have Baylor, who looks decent. West Virginia is looking way better than anyone would have thought. They still have Oklahoma State, who's the only undefeated Big 12 team left. I mean, is Tom Herman at all looking at a hot seat or looking a little bit uncomfortable in his spot at Texas?
Dude, he's been on the hot seat since he got there. Oh, I don't want to hear is he starting to be on the hot seat.
Since he got there, huh?
Really? I mean, honestly, yeah.
That's tough.
It's not a lot.
I don't know about that.
He can't win the big games.
I think you see that year in and year out. He's doing the Gus Malzahn method, Brandon. He's winning just enough to keep his job, and then he's beating Oklahoma just enough where they can't justify firing him.
So he's just doing the worst possible thing for that school.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. They can't win the big games, and they choke away some games they should have won. They should win every year.
I'm sure we're not projecting toward anything that we're going to talk about in the future, huh?
Oh, listen, we might have to cancel the podcast after some things that are going to be said later in the segment. But TCU also has a tough matchup next week. They go face red hot Kansas State, who just beat Texas Tech this weekend without their starting quarterback. The Big 12 is the Wild West right now, and I don't know if anybody's coming out with anything less than 3 losses. I mean, this conference is outrageous. And right now, guys, Oklahoma State's the only undefeated team, making me and B-Dub look real good on our pick there. But let's get to their in-state rival here, Brandon. Number 18, Oklahoma, traveled to Ames, Iowa to get beat 37-30 by Iowa State. This is part 2 of Zach Told You So. It's here, and I told you the Sooner streak would come to an end because all good things come to an end. And the Iowa State Cyclones pulled off the upset, Brandon. The Sooners are now 0-2 in the Big 12, Brandon, and are tied with the Kansas Jayhawks for one of the last spots in the Big 12. How do you feel about that, and what happened up in Ames, Iowa this weekend?
I don't know, honestly, because Spencer Rattler actually looked good in this one, and Brock Purdy looked bad. So I have
he did. Yeah, he did.
No idea what happened. Apparently, Breece Hall started. Yeah, Breece Hall. He happened. A lack of defense for Oklahoma happened. I don't know. A lot of things were happening. But none of them. There really wasn't a whole lot of good in this game, to be totally honest with you.
No, neither team played spectacular, I would say. I mean, I don't think either of them played their best game. And listen, I know everyone wants to jump on Rattler because he's starting quarterback, but I thought Rattler played really well. I thought this game was his best game.
He passed for 300 yards, dude. He completed 25 out of 36 passes. What's that percentage? I should know that. This is bad radio right now, but we're doing it. 69%. That's super nice.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I like that.
And his interception was a little questionable. I mean, there was some contact, maybe some holding, but Brandon, knowing a little bit about football, I still think the safety makes a play on that ball. That ball was overthrown, thrown into double coverage, and that safety broke on it immediately. Do I think it might have been a clean interception like it was? Maybe not, but I think that safety is breaking up the ball, or he's going to level that wide receiver while he's in the air. It was a questionable pass by Rattler, but the interception could have been like, okay, you could have called a pass interference, but either way, it was an iffy call. But I think Rattler's talented, Brandon, but I don't think he's ready to carry a team like the Sooners team needs to be carried. I think that has holes and inexperience in all the worst places. The run game only mustered up 3.5 yards per rush, and the leading rusher only had 47 yards rushing. The defense gave up over 415 yards total offense. Iowa State was 60% on their third down attempts, and the wide receivers dropped 3 big passes. And I don't think there's a true wide receiver one. Charleston Rambo's really good, but I don't think he's a true wide receiver one. I don't think he can carry an offense with Rattler, throwing him the ball. And, the MVP of the game, Brandon, you talked about him a little bit, Breece Hall. I mentioned to you guys that's one of the reasons I picked Iowa State. I thought Breece Hall was going to be able to run all over this Oklahoma team, and, well, he did. 139 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns. And, Brandon, early, Iowa State really struggled. Brock Purdy really didn't get it going until a little bit later in the game. And I think Hall was the reason this Iowa State team stayed in contention, because he allowed this offense to kind of gel later in the game. Because if they needed a short gain or just 4 or 5 yards, they could hand it to Hall, and he always got it. And Brandon, this is going to be a strong statement. With Hubbard's struggles right now in the Big 12, I don't think you could really question this. I think Barisi Hall is the best, or at least the top 2 running back in the Big 12 right now.
Yeah, he's up there. He's up there right behind LD Brown Brown for
LD Brown.
State. Yeah.
Well, hey, Chuba Hubbard actually went over 200 yards this weekend, but it was against Kansas. I don't know how much stock we're putting in this.
Doesn't count. That game should not count for anybody.
But guys, Brock Purdy, man, I don't know what's going on with him this year. He was not amazing, but the biggest thing for him, Brandon, was 0 interceptions. That was huge in this game. It was going to come down to who turned the ball over and who didn't. He took care of the ball, and it ended up paying off in the long run. He only had about 50% completion percentage. He was threw for over 250, but he had two total touchdowns, 1 passing, 1 rushing.
He also had a fumble that he lost. So I don't know if he took care of the ball.
Well, he took care of the ball in the air, though.
Okay.
I mean, because we've seen Brock Purdy struggle to do that at times, and he's not going to win the Heisman, Brandon, like some people might have thought, but he was good enough to win the game last night. And yes, he got more help on the ground, and I think that's the only difference between Rattler and him, is that he had other playmakers to rely on, and I don't think Rattler really could have relied on anyone else on that Sooners offense.
No, he couldn't. Who's he going to rely? Who's he going to rely on? T.J. Pledger or Seth McGowan? No, I wouldn't trust
Probably
him.
Not. I would hope not. But this Iowa State defense, man, it's coming alive, and it's going to win the Cyclones some games this year. It's been the bright spot, really and truly. I mean, even the Louisiana Lafayette game, Brandon, they had 2 special teams touchdowns to really pull away. This Iowa State team really didn't let them score that much. Mike Rose has been a bright spot all year. He had another 11 tackles, had half a sack, a tackle for loss and a half, and just seemed to be all over the field. Lawrence White, the 4th, helped him again, 10 tackles of his own. The 2 biggest stars on the defense delivering in the biggest game of the season for them. The defense got 2 timely sacks, had a whopping 8 tackles for loss, and they just made timely plays all game. You look at the interception, you look at the sacks. A lot of these came in the 4th quarter when the game was on the line, and I think that's kind of what you've seen with Iowa State in some of these upsets that they've pulled in recent years, is they just are always in the right place. They play disciplined football, and they make plays at the right time.
Yeah, definitely.
And Oklahoma, like I said, Red River Showdown, they could start 0-3, Brandon, in the Big 12. And I know Lincoln Riley is probably one of the best coaches in the country. He's going to find himself in some hot water if Oklahoma starts 1-3.
Look, I hope he does, and I hope he ends up. I hope it breaks his ego, and he has to go take a coordinator job somewhere. I don't know, pass game coordinator at maybe some school, and maybe in the South, like Louisiana or something. That'd be kind of cool.
Louisiana State University.
Yeah, maybe potentially.
Iowa State hosts Texas Tech next weekend, a team looking for a win desperately after 2 really close losses to 2 really good teams. But we're headed to Boston College here. North Carolina squeaked out a close win, 26-22, Brandon. And, I think this game was a lot closer than a lot of people thought. What was your big takeaway from this one?
Sam Howell needs to get an offensive line, I think, is the main thing.
It is depressing, right?
It's so bad. Lord, because you have been talking this kid up so much for the past year, and he just can't really do a whole lot because he's constantly on the ground. It is awful.
Or it's either on the ground or he's running for his life, and the offensive line seems to be pretty good at run blocking. The running game is great. But whatever happens in the pass blocking area is really if they have to face Clemson in the ACC championship, I have no doubt they can get 10 sacks.
Oh yeah, definitely.
No, and I'll be surprised if Miami doesn't. The way Miami's playing, and Pitt is going to make a run at 5-6 sacks if things don't change for North Carolina. And Brandon, my biggest takeaway here, really though, is not from Sam Howell, not from a Phil Jerkovich, anything like that. It was, could UNC win close games in 2020? they answer that question Saturday afternoon. I mean, Brandon, last year, all 6 of their losses were one-possession games.
Yeah.
And they finally found a way to win this one against a decent Boston College team that has really surprised me this year. And, Phil Jerkovich, I don't know why Boston College put all their faith in his arm, but to trust him to throw 56 passes, Brandon, that is not a strategy I thought they were going to go with here.
No, but he ended up doing fairly well. I mean, I understand he passed. I mean, he passed for over 300 yards in this game, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions.
Technically, he technically did have an interception on the 2-point conversion that got taken back for a pick two to clinch the game.
What, I don't know if okay, Zach, if we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this because Boston College should have gotten the ball on that final onside kick. She should have.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue.
There's no clear recovery on the onside kick, and Boston College. Boston College comes out of the pile with the ball, and the refs go, "Oh, that's UNC ball. That's UNC ball for sure." And I'm just sitting there like, what is going on? And the announcers are like, "This should not be allowed." And somehow, North Carolina just they got in victory formation and won the game.
Yeah. I don't know how the refs are fixed against you when you have a home game, but apparently it happened here in Boston. I don't know. I don't know what happened, but Jerkovich, Brandon, he did play a good game, but his lack of ability to push the ball down the field really was what cost Boston College, in my opinion. Brandon, on passes 20 plus yards downfield, he was 1 for 4 for only 30 yards.
Right.
Not great. And all his yardage came underneath the defense and underneath the coverage, and that really limits what the offense can do against elite defenses. If Dabo Swinney and that Clemson team know that you're just going to throw underneath the whole game, they'll take that. They'll give you 2, 3, 2 yards, and they're going to stop you every single time. Because when it gets to third down, they're going to blitz. They're going to get to the quarterback because they're that good. You're not going to beat a Miami, a Clemson, even a UNC by throwing underneath the whole game. You have to take some chances and get some big plays. And, when you run the ball 19 times for 40 yards, it's really hard to push the ball down the field because that defense isn't going to load the box against a run game like that. To average 2.1 yards per carry and your longest rush was 12 yards, that really, really limits what an offense can call because the defense knows what's coming every single time. And I think, Brandon, that's really what held Boston College back this game because I think they could have won this game if they were able to push the ball down the field a little bit more.
Yeah, no, I could definitely see that. I mean, this game was super close. If Boston College would have gotten that 2-point conversion, it would have been a tied game. The game probably would have gone to overtime. Like you said, Jerkovic, which is how the announcers pronounce it. So I'm going to run with that. I don't really know. I have no idea how it's pronounced.
I've heard it pronounced 2 or 3 different ways by different people. So I don't know exactly because I heard Jerkovich on I think it was the college football final or something. Yeah. So apparently ESPN can't decide it either.
We should probably ask. But Zach, let me ask you this. A lot of people have been comparing Sam Howell to Jameis Winston because he has the same number of interceptions as he does touchdown passes. Do you have any comments on this? Or
that's true. I mean, listen, he was not elite. I got you. He did enough to win the game. He had 225 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Interceptions are an issue this year, and it's not a good look because Boston College is not a great secondary. And not a good defensive team. They don't have a good secondary. But Brandon, where he's great at is intermediate throws. In intermediate throws, he was 4 for 5, 97 yards and 2 touchdowns. Great there. And the reason I think he's struggling is that offensive line, Brandon. Under pressure, Howell does not lack the composure I need to see. And I'm gonna be critical of Howell. I know everyone's like, oh, you're way too high on Howell and another quarterback we're going to talk about in a game or two. But, under pressure, Brandon, he was 1 for 6 last night. 41 yards, a touchdown and interception. So he got a touchdown, but it was just he got rid of it. The blitz didn't completely get there. He had an open guy, whatever. But the 1 for 6 and an interception is real bad. And the O-line gave up 4 sacks against an average defensive front. And like I said, until Howell can stay calm and efficient under pressure, his ceiling is probably the 3rd, 4th best quarterback in the ACC. He is horrible under pressure, and that's not going to bode well when he goes up against some of these elite defensive lines. And yeah, it's a fair criticism to compare him to Jameis, but I guess in college he'll get compared to Jameis Winston. I guess it's not that bad of a thing because Jameis did win the national championship and the Heisman Trophy.
Yeah, whatever.
But Brandon, moving to the real storyline, how about Michael Carter and Javonte Williams? Those dudes they're savages. I'll go with savages. I like that word. These dudes demolish defenses, and it could be both of them. It could be Carter. It could be Williams. They are both capable any night of going for 100, 200 yards apiece.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, Carter last night was the go-to back. He had over 120 yards rushing, over 7 yards per carry. Williams had 50 yards rushing and a touchdown. And they just bring unique skill sets, Brandon. If you stop one, then the other is going to explode for a big game. And they're the bright spot of this offense so far in 2020 because Daz Newsome hasn't been great either. I'm kind of worried about his performances right now. So this offense has some work to do, but the running game is not any bit of a concern for the Tar Heels. And this UNC defense is just the typical bend but don't break defense. They had 3 sacks, 6 tackles for loss, 7 quarterback hurries, an INT return on a 2-point conversion. Chaz Surratt could be one of the best linebackers in the ACC. Another big performance with 8 tackles, a sack, a tackle for loss, a pass breakup. This defense has talent at all levels of the defense, and it's really been the key to UNC winning these early games. But we got some SEC matchups we got to cover here. Where UNC moves on to face number 19 Virginia Tech next weekend in a huge ranked ACC matchup, while Boston College hosts a strong Pitt team looking to rebound after a disappointing loss this weekend. But Brandon, we had a blowout in Tuscaloosa, and it was the number 13 Texas A&M Aggies losing 52-24 to the Alabama Crimson Tide. And Brandon, I think you'll like this. I'm going to use a quote here from the great Dennis Green, which applies to both teams here. They are who we thought they were, and I think that quote encompasses this game. So, what did you see, and anything that shocked you? Because I don't think anything shocked me at all.
I'm not shocked. I mean, we called this, right? I mean, Alabama, they didn't end up covering, did they? No, yeah, they did. Yeah, they did. They beat them. Well, that was 29.5. I'm not sure. It doesn't really matter. They won. They blew Texas A&M out. Kellen Mond is who we thought he was, or at least who we thought he was, Zach. I mean, we know some other people who maybe thought he was something more, but fraud. I already called him a fraud. He's a fraud.
A fraud?
I said.
Really?
I called Texas A&M frauds on the last show. I did, so I'm gonna stick with it.
That's real tough, but no, listen, Texas A&M, middle of the road SEC team with some talent, but they got major holes. I actually thought Kellen Mond played decent, Brandon. I really did, but he had no help. Man, did you see that run game?
Not great.
Brandon, their leading rusher was the true freshman backup quarterback Haynes King with 43 yards rushing.
Yeah. Some people say that, yeah.
Yeah, Anaya Smith, only 5 carries for 29 yards. Starting running back Isaiah Spiller, 11 carries for 25 yards. They averaged 3.8 yards per rush. That's never going to beat an Alabama team. And Mond did decent things in the intermediate to short routes, but deep passes, not great, Brandon. 0 deep passes, 20-plus yards downfield attempted.
Yeah.
How are you going to beat Alabama not throwing down the field?
Apparently you're not.
Yeah, you're not. And outside the numbers, Brandon, just outside the numbers, that's from the line of scrimmage, 20-plus yards downfield, outside the numbers, 5 for 14, 55 yards, a touchdown, and an interception, which got taken back for a touchdown.
Yeah, that's tough. That's really tough.
That makes the defensive scheme easy for a coach like Nick Saban. It's impossible to beat him with a easy, simple offense like that. Like, okay, they're going to throw inside the numbers, and they can't run the ball. Nick Saban is going to eat you up every single time.
He's going to eat your lunch all day.
Every single time. And on the other side of the ball, man, you want to talk about a bully? We tried to warn you guys last episode about John Mechie. My God. The rich just keep getting richer. Like, are you kidding me? This dude's the third best, quote unquote, the third best wide receiver on the team. 5 catches, 181, 2 touchdowns, averaging 36 yards per catch.
Yeah, nah,
that's tough. That's tough.
He's a good football player. I'll say it.
I think a good football player might be. Listen, I'm going to say it here. I think Jalen Waddle is the best wide receiver on this team. He had an outstanding day, 5 catches, 142 and a touchdown, over 28 yards per catch. But I think John Mechie is better than Devontae Smith.
Do you?
I really do. Yes, I do. I think he's just as explosive. He's probably more physical, and I think he has a better understanding of the route tree, and he can run a wider range of routes than Smith can. Smith hasn't really impressed me as much this year. Waddle and Mechie have absolutely outplayed him in the games we've seen from Alabama this season. How do you stop Waddle and Mechie, and even Smith as, like, I would say, a third option? I mean, nobody has that amount of speed and talent on the back end of their defense, Brandon. I mean, somebody's getting matched up on a safety, and it's over at that point. I mean, you look at Jalen Waddle's touchdown where he gets double covered, and he burns both of them in the third quarter.
Right.
He outran both of them by 10 yards, and it wasn't even close. And the scariest part of this game is, Brandon, I don't think Alabama played up to their potential. I don't think they played that well, and they still dominated. They allowed A&M to convert over 58% of their third downs. They allowed over 450 yards of total offense. They had a costly turnover. They had broken coverages, which allowed A&M to tie it up at 14. But they still put it together when they needed. The offense showed they had talent. I mean, Mac Jones continues to be efficient, accurate, poised on every play. This team is so deadly, Brandon. I mean, it can score in bunches, and if they get rolling, it's going to be no problem scoring 42, 49 points in the first half on somebody.
No, absolutely not. I mean, they look explosive. I will say Najee Harris didn't really play as well as I'd hope he would this weekend.
I don't think he had to. I really think they just they tried to keep him out of harm's way, if that makes sense.
They ran him 12 times. They ran him more than they ran any other running back.
Yeah, but 12 carries is not – I mean, I felt like they focused more on the pass game.
Well, they did, absolutely. I mean, they had 20 passes, but they had 28 runs. So they had 27 passes, 28 runs. So, well, which I guess it counts for, I think, 1 sack. I think Mac Jones only got sacked once.
Not surprising based on the horrible defensive line A&M has. But, I mean, I think Bijan Robinson was a big part in the run game. But for me, Brandon, I'm not worried about Najee Harris. I know he could turn it on whenever. He still had 2 touchdowns in the red zone. You give it to him 3 times, he's scoring. It's just a guarantee.
Right. No,
and, Brandon, right now, after 2 games, I think Alabama has a real argument that they're the best team in the country right now. And that's over Clemson.
Yeah, they look.
I really do.
Really, 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 really good. And it's against the number 13 team in the country. Yeah,
to beat them. And Clemson didn't look great against Virginia last night. Let's be honest. They looked really, really. They looked average last night against Virginia. And right now, the only team that has talent top to bottom to compare to Alabama is Clemson. And Brandon, if Alabama and Clemson played today on a neutral site, I don't know who I would choose right now.
I don't either.
I think Alabama's that good right now. I want to see more from both teams. We're going to find out about Clemson this weekend when they have Miami. And depending on how that game turns out, I think Alabama has a real shot at getting that number 1 spot in the polls. And I thought they were going to make a run at it this week because they have looked absolutely dominant. They got some big games coming up, Brandon. They got Georgia. They still have to play LSU. I'm not even going to mention Auburn because they're going to beat Auburn by 110. They have Tennessee. Tennessee looks really good. How about that? Well, they have Tennessee, LSU. They have Georgia. They could have Florida in the SEC championship. Alabama heads to Oxford next week, though, Brandon, to face Lane Kiffin and the Ole Miss Rebels, who came off a big overtime win over Kentucky last weekend. A&M, Brandon, how about this draw? They host their second straight top 5 opponent in the Florida Gators. What a draw. No, Alabama than Florida.
I mean, it's tough.
All right, so we'll probably cover that game, but just like a way early prediction. Over under Kyle Pitts is going to go for 3 more touchdowns against this horrible defense.
Yeah, I mean, over under? Mm-hmm. So he said?
Over. Yeah, I'll set the line at 2. How about that? We'll set the line at 2. No, 2 touchdowns for Kyle
Oh, two
Pitts on this
touchdowns.
defense.
I'll have to go with the push. What are the odds for the push? Because that sounds good.
Okay, we'll give you the push there. We'll see when we preview that game later this week. But guys, it was the moment everyone's been waiting on. There's many questions I've gotten through text and talking to some people. How am I going to react to this embarrassing performance? Will he finally rip Bo Nix? Yes. What about that O-line performance? We'll get to it, but I hope they don't listen to the podcast. Where was the defense you talked about last episode? I don't know. I'm looking for Kevin Steele's resume so I can burn it. Auburn gets dominated 27-6 by Georgia. Brandon, you could take it because I have a whole lot of ranting to do. But, I want to say I think we really should start by absolutely praising this Georgia Bulldogs team and Stetson Bennett because I think they deserve it more than anything. Because that team, they looked like a top 3 team in the country last night.
They looked really good. And Bo Pix showed up last night, so that's I'm back with that, Zach. Sorry. Bo Pix is back in full force. No touchdown.
I'm just going with Bo Trash. I'm just going with Bo Trash. He's trash, but he's garbage.
He had 8 whole rushing yards, Zach. That's pretty sick. 11 rushes. He had 1 rush for 10 yards. But other than that, he's just getting eaten up.
It was a sacks. It was a sacks.
Yeah. So it's not great. Not great.
How about Stetson Bennett though? He for a walk-on making his first start in a top 10 primetime matchup that was game day to complete 61% of his passes, 240 yards and a touchdown, and did not turn the ball over.
Zach's trying to take the attention off of Bo Pix right now.
No. Oh no, I have a whole rant for Bo Pix later. We're talking about how good Stetson Bennett was though, because that kid. Are you telling me this kid was on the bench, Brandon, while we watched Jake Fromm muck it up last year against South Carolina?
Apparently he can beat out JT Daniels. So, yeah, they figured it out, I guess.
Brandon, I know you were watching a lot of the LSU game, but did you see his touchdown pass to George Pickens in the second quarter?
I did not.
Right off the sideline, he man coverage. He just rainbowed it, hit him right in the numbers. It was right off the sideline in the corner of the end zone. It was such a gorgeous pass. That is what some NFL quarterbacks I know, aka Dak Prescott, cannot make. And
but he can pass for 500 yards. So
but they also how many points they give up to the Browns today while we were recording? 49, 56, something like that. Yeah, but listen, the O-line of this Georgia team, those are some grown men. Holy, I've never seen an Auburn front seven get dominated like that. And the running backs, man, they ran hard. They were physical, tough. Zamir White and James Cook dominated the entire game. White had 88 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns. Cook averaged 8 yards per carry on his limited attempts. There was a point, Brandon, where it was like late second quarter or so, and Georgia ran like 10 straight running plays. He got down to like the 5-yard line, and then they threw it 3 times, got stopped and kicked a field goal. I'm like, if you ran it 10 times for like 80 yards down the field, why do you not just run it in? You have 2 5-star running backs back there, and you're going to just start throwing it all of a sudden. You are running down their throats. Just put your foot on their throat and just smash it. There's no reason to play. There's no reason to throw 3 consecutive times when you are running the ball at will.
Yeah, that's fair.
And I don't know where this Karis Jackson kid came from because he answered the questions of who other than George Pickens can catch a pass because this kid was open on every single crucial third down. 9 catches for 147 yards and was just all over the field. The Auburn defense had no answer for Jackson. The kid was spectacular, and they outplayed Auburn in every single aspect of the game, Brandon, except maybe special teams. Our kicker on point, apparently. But I guess not because he also kicked the ball out of bounds on a kickoff after he made a field goal. But that's a whole nother – that's fine. But we have to talk about Auburn here. We're here, and Auburn absolutely got outplayed. The effort that was given and shown by everyone outside of Tank Bigsby is really what has me upset about this game. I haven't seen an Auburn defense under Kevin Steele get outplayed like that since he became defensive coordinator for the Tigers. They allowed 25 first downs, Brandon, 64% on third downs, over 400 yards of total offense, and did not force a single turnover.
No, I mean, Georgia looked so good this weekend. It's crazy that they came off of just an awful performance against Arkansas, who might be good. We'll probably have to talk about that at some point.
Yeah, well, we're going to talk about that next segment, but
yeah,
they're actually good for once. But
I don't understand how, but yeah.
No, I mean,
makes me nervous.
UGA got 34 minutes of time of possession.
Yeah.
Against this defense. And yeah, KJ Britt should be commended for his effort. He dislocated his shoulder early in the game, still played, but outside of that, this defense was atrocious. And the offensive line, what in the literal hell are you doing?
Nothing, obviously.
I mean, I would have rather put just practice dummies out there.
Right.
They probably would have been in the way more than them.
That's fair. Fair enough.
I mean, they only gave up 3 sacks, but every single play Bo Nix was running for his life.
Yeah.
Bo Nix is going to have nightmares of this Georgia defense. And
I agree.
The offensive line finally looked as young as they are, replacing 4 starters, and they looked sloppy. They had false start penalties. They had holding penalties. I'm surprised they even got holding penalties. I didn't even know they touched the Georgia defender all game. I was mind blown on how that happened. The play calling, though, Brandon, was god awful. I mean, the old Gus Malzahn would have been proud of Chad Morris because this is the same old story. No variety, no lack, just a lack of downfield passing in general. Brandon, every single third down and long. Here's the play call. I got you. I'm not even like a super huge football play nerd or whatever. I know a little bit, but they would get into 4 wide, right, Brandon? They would motion the running back out to the flank as the farthest out receiver, and Georgia would see it. They would bring 6, blitz every time. There weren't enough blockers. Bo Nix would run out of the pocket, throw it downfield, or throw it at the feet of a wide receiver because he was running for his life. That's it. That was the same third down and long every single time. And then in the second half, they adjusted where they would show blitz, but then back off into coverage, and Bo Nix would see the blitz, panic, and scramble from a clean pocket. It was genius. It was absolutely genius. It was the most simple. It's the same. It's almost like the same concept that Clemson used to beat Alabama in the national championship, where every time Alabama brought a wide receiver in motion, Clemson would blitz off that edge, and Tua did not pick it up every single time. It was excellent game planning by Georgia and that defense. And also, Auburn makes it down to the red zone, right, Brandon? Inside the 5. Tank Bigsby's cooking. He's a 5-star true freshman running back. You know what we do? 2 quarterback powers, 1 to the short side of the field, stop. So what do we do? Call the exact same play the other way to the long side of the field.
You're right.
What a genius call. What a genius call. I love it.
You really had to commend it. Yeah.
It really, I'm all. Even Madden suggestions on like video games won't suggest calling the same play twice in a row like that. And come on, man, you got a 5-star true freshman who is averaging at that time I think it was like 5 yards a carry, and you don't put it in his hands, and then you throw a swing pass on third down where the defense read it and called it out before you even snapped the ball. It's Bush League, Brandon. It's the reason Gus Malzahn is consistently an average coach. I am over it, and I know everyone's been waiting. I know Brandon's been waiting. It's the Bo Nix segment. It's the player that should and will receive the most criticism. What a god-awful night. 52% completion percentage, 177 passing yards, and an interception. The stats are much worse when breaking it down, Brandon. I did some research. Under pressure, when Georgia got pressure on him, Brandon, Nix had a 31% completion percentage, 50 yards passing, and 1 interception.
Right.
I think you could do better than that. I really do. I think you would sit in the pocket and take a few hits and complete some passes. No doubt on you, Brandon. And this shows that Nix has not learned a single thing since last year. He's done the exact same thing over and over again. He cost Auburn the LSU game last year. He cost Auburn the Georgia game last year. He cost Auburn the Minnesota game last year. He almost cost them the Oregon game. He definitely cost them the Florida game with his 3 garbage interceptions. And Brandon, 10-plus yards down the field, Nix was 3 for 18, 56 yards and an interception.
Yeah.
That's pathetic. I don't want to hear the excuse of Georgia has a good defense. Nix was a 5-star freshman coming out of high school for some recruiting services. You're telling me all you can give me 10 yards downfield is 3 for 18, 56 yards and a pick?
Dude. I feel for you, though. I really do.
Listen, Nix has yet to prove he's an elite quarterback. Yeah, that's great you went over 200 downs without interception, but what are you doing in those 200 downs other than throwing the ball to the fans? I mean, how many fans have an Auburn football right now that was thrown by Bo Nix, panicking and throwing it out of a clean pocket?
Well, see, that some people wouldn't view that as such a bad thing, Zach.
Oh, I'm viewing it as a bad thing. I'd rather you throw 10 interceptions than just throw the ball away into the stands every single play. Like, come on, man. That's ridiculous. Listen, there's a true freshman coming in next season. We've previewed him on this show. Demetrius Davis, right now, he should be the starting quarterback for the Auburn Tigers next season if Nix doesn't improve.
Yeah.
Really and truly. Nix looks scared. Nix looks scared, man. Like, how are you going to play D1 college football and look scared? He looks like he is terrified of everything and anything. And I don't want my quarterback to play scared. The quarterbacks has to be a leader, and right now, Nix is not a leader. Nix looks like a 4-year-old in a pool, and he doesn't know how to swim. He's just kicking and throwing and drowning, and no one's saving him, and he can't do anything.
Zach, I hate when Auburn loses because you do this every single week.
Granted, if Miles Brennan went out there and went 3 for 18, 56 yards and an interception on 10-plus yards down the field throwing against Mississippi State, this podcast wouldn't even been recorded last week.
Okay, fair.
He said, okay, that's good. But listen, we'll move on here. But I'm done with Auburn right now. We're good. We're not even going to cover them on the podcast anymore. And we shouldn't because I guess they have Arkansas, Ole Miss, and South Carolina their next 3 games. So I doubt those are making pick 6. But Georgia hosts Tennessee next week in a huge ranked matchup in the SEC East. Auburn, like I said, hosts Arkansas. That's looking for another huge road upset. And that brings us into our last segment. Top 25 upsets. We're going to end this show by breaking down some of the biggest upsets of an outstanding Week 5 of college football. We cover some in our pick 6, but I don't think these 3 upsets could have been predicted by many experts going into the weekend. Brandon, let's start in the AAC, where the formerly number 11 UCF Black Knights lost to the underdog Tulsa Golden Hurricanes, 34-26 down in Orlando. What happened to your, I guess, beloved Black Knights?
All right, whoever said they were beloved, Zach. Look, I thought they were good. I still think that they're good. I don't really know what happened. I mean, they came out, they looked strong, and they were winning at halftime, and then the second half comes around, they scored 3 points. What do you want me to do about that, Zach?
I thought Dylan Gabriel was elite.
I mean, I don't know if I ever said he was elite, but yeah, I mean, still 330 yards passing isn't a bad thing, Zach. Is it?
Did he win the game though?
I mean,
against Tulsa. Did he get outplayed by Zach Smith?
What I'll say is that 26 points can usually win you a football game. So I mean, I think it's more of a defensive issue.
Okay, but did he get outplayed by Zach Smith?
I mean, maybe.
Yes. He did. Yeah, he actually did.
I don't know.
Actually, he did.
I don't know if he really did because I mean, 273 yards isn't as good as 330.
Yeah, but how about 3 touchdowns to 1 touchdown and Smith averaging 9.4 yards per completion while Gabriel was at 6.5?
I don't know, dude. What do you want me to say? You want me to apologize? What do you want me to do?
Brandon, they were leading 23-5 in the second quarter.
Okay. They sure were.
Yeah, a 16-0 lead early in the first.
And then they went on a 0-29 scoreless streak. It was
That's
awful.
Real bad.
It was terrible.
Well, also Tulsa helped them. They had 3 straight turnovers in the first quarter on three consecutive possessions.
Right.
But then UCF had their own streak of 3 late in the second, which helped Tulsa get back into the game. Zach Smith played great, 60% completion percentage, 270 and passing yards, 3 touchdowns. He was more efficient than Gabriel. In the rush game, Brandon, which may not be reflected in the total stats, UCF had trouble really moving the ball. Yes, Otis Anderson did have 84 yards rushing, Brandon. 49 of those came on one run. So he averaged about 2 yards per carry outside of that one explosive run.
And
not going to win you many ball games.
It won't, no. I'll say
no. And on the other side, TK Wilkerson, Corey Taylor II combined for over 145 yards rushing and a touchdown. I mean, Brandon, the UCF Knights are going to have a tough road to the AAC title now after this huge upset, and really has ruined their outside playoff shot. They were right outside the top 10 in week 5, Brandon.
Yeah,
and
they were number 11. Yeah.
Yeah, right outside the top 10. Their outside playoff shot is gone. The 2018 national champions are out now. And Tulsa has a little bit of momentum. We put their coach on the hot seat this offseason, and looks like they're trying to overachieve. And listen, that Oklahoma State struggle win over Tulsa is looking real good right now.
It really is.
That's looking real great right now. But let's move to a team that Brandon made me feel a little bit better about Auburn's performance yesterday night. He said, at least y'all didn't lose to someone who just lost to Arkansas at home. Well, the Arkansas Razorbacks beat the Mississippi State Bulldogs, number 16 in the country, 21-14. Brandon, I need you to defend what happened last week against LSU.
I don't know what to say, Zach, because I don't feel good. I don't know what you want me to do, because LSU apparently can't stop a Mississippi State team that loses to Arkansas, and doesn't even try to play a convincing game. You know, it's not like,
oh man,
it's not like, I understand it was 21-14 by the end of the game, but Mississippi State scores a touchdown at the end of the third quarter to bring it to that. Before that, Arkansas was up the entire game. There was never a point where they trailed. The fourth quarter, no one scored. Mississippi State can't do anything. And that's with them winning the time of possession by 13 minutes? They had 36 minutes of possession, Zach, compared to Arkansas's 23. They had 400 total yards compared to Arkansas's 275. And they had 24 first downs compared to Arkansas's 17. But they had double the turnovers. And I think that just broke their back. That's awful.
Yeah, turnovers really were the difference in this game, Brandon. 4 huge turnovers by Mississippi State, 3 interceptions by Costello, and the first one was taken back for a touchdown.
Right.
Really set the momentum up for the Razorbacks. Another lost fumble, plus 2 more fumbles that were luckily recovered by the Bulldogs. And Brandon, this brings me back here. Sloppy play is why Mike Leach never won anything significant in the Pac-12. The best indicator of future success is past success, and here it is again. Mike Leach can upset any team in the entire country, but when he's supposed to win, he falls short every time.
Right.
And
so, let me ask you this, Zach. I don't know if you noticed. Like I said, I didn't really watch this game. This game was on at the same time LSU was on. So,
it's also on SEC Network alternate channel, so I don't even know who got to watch this game.
Yeah. Do you know what happened to Kylan Hill? He had 1 rush, and it looks like
he got hurt on the first play of the game.
Okay, let's see. And that's a big difference.
Yeah, that's a huge target.
He's a huge target in the receiving game. Obviously we know what he can do on the ground, but in this Mike Leach offense, he was like their second receiver, second leading receiver last weekend. And so this weekend, just to not be in the game, that breaks their knees, man. That's bad.
Yeah, and the rush game was pedestrian again for the Bulldogs, only 3.6 yards per rush. And when KJ Costello is struggling, it's real hard to get going there. But for me, Brandon, Felipe Franks was not amazing, but he made enough plays for the Razorbacks to win, shockingly. 71% completion percentage, 212 yards, and 2 touchdowns. How did Felipe Franks have no turnovers and Miles Brennan turned it over repeatedly?
Why do we got to keep bringing – we're not even talking about LSU right now. Why do we got to keep bringing them up?
Listen, the Bulldogs pretty much just got caught sleeping after a huge Game 1 win over LSU. But
Mike Leach does a lot. If they win a big game, I can't remember the
always collapse.
I can't remember what the exact statistic was, but there was man, I wish I could remember the percentage. After like big wins or after upset wins by Mike Leach, it's like 85% of the time they lose the next game or something like that.
Yep.
I
That's
can't
what I was
remember.
saying. The best indicator of future success is past success.
Right.
Mike Leach can't deliver after he exceeds expectations. And Brandon, that brings, I mean, the Bulldogs got caught sleeping, huge game win over LSU, but now the jury's out on their potential. And Arkansas may have a little momentum now. And if another team goes again to a matchup with Arkansas and overlooks them, this Arkansas team might have the momentum to really strike and cause some chaos in the SEC. And I can't believe Arkansas did this, but we got one more upset to cover, and we're going to wrap this up. We had NC State upsetting Pitt,
Oh man.
30-29. Brandon, what happened here?
I don't know. The defense for Pitt got caught sleeping is what happened. I
Yeah,
think.
facts.
I mean,
400 yards to NC State and 28 first downs.
which is crazy. I mean, it's NC State. I don't know how. I mean, this was one of the early games, so I did get to catch a lot of this one. Um, the play calling on offense too, man, was just the worst I've ever seen in my
Garbage.
life. It was
Hot
so
garbage.
bad. Good Lord. Pitt at one point had I think they had first and goal from the 1 yard line. They ended up on like the 4 yard line and didn't get the touchdown. I mean, it's that bad. How do you mess up that bad?
They didn't even get a field goal. They turned the ball over on downs.
Right.
Dude, they get no points. No
So,
points. And listen, Pitt's probably one or two plays away from being 4-0 right now.
absolutely.
I mean, they could have won this game, but the defense must have missed the memo for yesterday's game. NC State, Brady, got blown out by Virginia Tech team, missing like 16 starters last week.
Yeah. They did.
And they showed up this week, though. I mean, but the run game wasn't there. The Pitt front seven showed up, only 2.1 yards per carry. The longest run was a 14-yard scramble by quarterback Devin Leary. The problem was on the back end of the defense, who allowed Leary to pass for over 300 yards and 4 passing touchdowns.
Right.
What happened to Paris Ford? What happened to this elite defense we've seen in the first few weeks? I'm not going to lie, this was probably the most shocking upset of the week. Yeah, could I see Mike Leach screwing up a game against Arkansas? Yeah, absolutely. What UCF losing? That's fine, whatever. But Pitt's defense getting torn up by NC State, not something I foresaw coming into this weekend.
I will say I'm pretty sure Paris Ford was playing concussed in this game. He went out with what looked like a head injury in like the first quarter, and then just came back. It was like leading with his head all the time. So not a good.
That's crazy because he was like second on the team in tackles.
Yeah, yeah, man. I mean, he's a good football player. Zach, did you happen to see the time of possession split for these teams?
I know it's kind of outrageous, but go ahead.
Exactly. Split down the middle. It was 30 minutes and 0 seconds for each team in possession, and no turnovers for either team. This game was bananas. I don't really. This game should not have been as evenly matched as it was, but no. I don't know. I don't know what else to say.
Pitt is the better team, and listen, Pitt is better than NC State and would win this game 9 times out of 10. But Devin Leary was too much yesterday, and Pitt self-imploded. I mean, Brandon. They got 500 yards of total offense, but only put up 29 points.
Yeah.
Unacceptable. They had the ball inside the NC State 15-yard line 3 times, Brandon, came up with 6 points on those 3 possessions.
That's wild.
And kicked another field goal after going 62 yards into NC State territory.
Right.
If they could turn these long drives into touchdowns, Brandon, then they would be hard to beat because this defense isn't giving up 30 or more points in many games this year.
No, absolutely not.
And again, Kenny Pickett, 400 yards passing, 3 total touchdowns. But guess what, Brandon? Another 4 drop passes by his wide receivers.
Man, I straight up, I looked over to my wife, Hannah, yesterday, and I said, I want their receivers to take off the gloves. I want to see if there's hands underneath there. Because they couldn't catch anything.
It's horrible. Four drop passes. Come on, man. That's ridiculous. And what about the penalties, Brandon? To win moving forward, Pitt's got to clean those up. 13 penalties for 125 total yards.
Right.
And the pass interference at the end of the game cost them the game.
It for sure did.
Listen, Pitt's going to be fine. I think they should beat Boston College this upcoming weekend. 4-1 head into a Miami game. You can't hang your head on. But, man, they're going to have to clean up some of this against Miami because Miami's not going to – you aren't going to just score 29 points on Miami and beat them.
No, absolutely.
You're going to have to not have penalties. You're going to have Kenny Pickett playing at his best. And this defense, man, if Emeka Emezi can have 100 yards receiving, 7 catches and 2 touchdowns, and Devin Leary can put up 4 passing touchdowns, De'Aaron King in that offense is going to be a nightmare.
Yeah, for sure.
That's going to be terrifying. But, guys, we're going to wrap up here, man. Week 5 in the books. We got Week 6 preview coming later this week. We got winners and losers from Week 5 coming out on our website very soon, so stay tuned on social media for that. Instagram @_Bluebloods, Twitter @_Bluebloods, Facebook @the Bluebloods Pod. Our website, thebluebloods.pod.com. Go check it out now, guys. We appreciate all y'all listening, man. You know you can find the podcast anywhere. YouTube, the Blue Bloods CFB podcast. Go check it out there. Please subscribe to the podcast on YouTube or wherever you want to listen. Give it 5 stars. We love all of y'all out there. The Blue Bloods fam is strong on that, man. But listen, Week 6 coming soon. We got big games. Clemson, Miami this weekend, man. Another top 10 matchup. Me and Brendan are excited. You should be too. So make sure to tune into the Blue Bloods for this episode and future episodes. But for right now, we are out.